Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. My name is Fred, and today I'm going to tell you how I walked away from my marriage. Because at some point, I realized that no matter how hard I tried, no matter how much I wanted things to work, there was no fixing it. I reached a point where staying would have meant losing myself. And when you get to that point, you have two choices. Stay and let it break you, or leave and start over. I chose to leave. Looking back now, I see the warning signs were always there. But I was young, hopeful, and full of all these ideas about what marriage was supposed to be. Now, I'm not telling this story to play the victim or to make anyone feel sorry for me. I'm telling it because a lot of people, especially men, find themselves in situations like this and don't see the truth until it's too late. So if you're listening, take this as a lesson. Because I had to learn the hard way. My wife, Tina, seemed nice when we were dating. She had this beautiful smile and knew exactly what to say at the right time. But beneath that warmth, there was something else. A quiet, underlying forcefulness. It wasn't obvious, not the type of thing you'd immediately call out. It was small moments. The way she insisted on things going her way, how she always had to have the last word in an argument, how she could make her disappointment feel like a punishment without ever raising her voice. I figured it was just part of her personality, something marriage would smooth out. See, I had a simple belief. When a man takes care of his woman, when he provides, she naturally falls into place. I grew up thinking that a husband's authority is tied to his role as a provider. If a man is paying the bills, making sure his wife has what she needs, then respect and submission follow. That's how relationships work, right? A woman respects a man who handles his business. So I walked into marriage confident. I had a stable job, I was bringing in good money, and I assumed that once we settled in, Tina would ease into her role as my wife, supportive, respectful, trusting me to lead. That's what I thought. But here's the truth I didn't see back then. Dominant personalities don't change after marriage. If anything, they just become more comfortable showing who they really are. Tina's submission at the start wasn't real. It was temporary. She wasn't following my lead because she respected me. She was just riding the high of the honeymoon period, and more importantly, she had no reason to challenge me back then. I was the provider, the one holding things down, and as long as that was the case, she played her part. But playing a part isn't the same as truly believing in something. And I was about to learn that the hard way. I remember the day I lost my job. I had walked into my office like any other day, sat down at my desk, and a few minutes later, my manager called me in. The meeting was short and straight to the point. The company was cutting budget and downsizing. That's how they put it. But when you've got bills to pay, there's nothing more personal than losing your income. At first, I told myself it was temporary. I had a solid resume, years of experience, and good connections. I figured I'd bounce back in no time. I walked out of that office with my head high, confident that this was just a setback, nothing more. I even joked with Tina that night, saying, "Guess I get a little vacation while I job hunt." She laughed at the time, but looking back, I think that was the last real moment of warmth between us. The first few weeks weren't bad. I sent out applications, made calls, followed up on leads. But the job market wasn't as welcoming as I had hoped. Weeks turned into months, and the longer I stayed unemployed, the more things started shifting at home. At first, Tina was supportive, encouraging me, telling me I'd find something soon. But over time, her patience thinned. I could see it in the little things. She stopped asking how my job search was going and started saying, "we less" and "I more." She never said it outright, but I could feel resentment. It crept into our conversations, our routines, our silence. Tina became irritated all the time. Little things set her off. I'd forget to take out the trash before she got home. Argument. I'd leave a plate in the sink. Trouble. If I asked her what was wrong, the answer was always nothing. But her tone and her body language all screamed something was wrong. And then there was the intimacy. In the past, she would reach for my hand while we watched TV, lean against me on the couch, steal kisses in the kitchen. Now, nothing. It was like living with a roommate, not a wife. A cold shoulder replaced warm embraces. A distracted replaced actual conversations. She never initiated intimacy anymore. And when I tried, I could feel the hesitation and the lack of enthusiasm. But the real shift wasn't in the mood swings or the distance. It was in how she saw me. I used to be her husband. Now I was just another mouth to feed and another bill to pay. Before I lost my job, Tina had this unspoken belief that I was the leader of our household. She never questioned it because, in her mind, it was simple. I provided, so I led. But the moment that changed, the unspoken rules changed too. I heard remarks like, "I'll handle it since I'm the one bringing in money right now," or "Maybe you should spend more time looking for work instead of watching TV." But over time, it grew bolder. Once a woman sees you as a burden instead of a man, you'll never get that respect back. One evening, I was sitting in the living room with my friends, watching football, trying, just for a little while, to feel like myself again. It had been months since I lost my job, and every day in that house felt like I was walking on eggshells. Tina barely looked at me the same way. She wasn't outright cruel, but it was in the little things. But at that moment, with my friends around, I wasn't the unemployed husband struggling to find his footing. I was just Fred again, laughing at the game, talking trash about the teams, feeling a small piece of normalcy in a life that had felt anything but normal for a long time. Then Tina called my name from the kitchen. "Fred, come here and get this for me from the mall." It wasn't a request. It was a demand. I didn't see the urgency. So, without looking away from the screen, I called back, "I'll get it once the match is over." I expected her to wait or for her to come in and remind me if it was really important. But what I wasn't expecting was what came next. Before I could even process it, she was standing right there in front of all my friends. Her arms were crossed. And then she said it, loud and clear for everyone in the room to hear. "Either do as I say or pack your bags." Just like that, the entire room shifted. Nobody said a word. My friends, who had been talking and laughing just seconds ago, went dead silent. You could hear the commentators on the TV in the background, but in that room, it was like the whole world had paused. My friends weren't looking at me, but I could feel their eyes shifting uncomfortably, pretending to be interested in the game while processing what they had just heard. I sat there, stunned. Not just because of what she said, but because of where she said it. She could have pulled me aside, could have waited until later. But no, she wanted an audience. She wanted to make sure everybody in that room knew exactly what the power dynamic in our marriage had become. And in that moment, I knew I was no longer her husband in her eyes. I stood up slowly and looked her right in the eyes. My heart was pounding, but my face stayed calm. "Say that again," I told her, my voice steady. She didn't hesitate. She doubled down. "Either do as I say or pack your bags." I nodded. That was it. That was the moment. If she could say something like that in front of my friends without a second thought, then whatever we had before, whatever respect, whatever love was gone. And there was no coming back from it. "All right," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "If that's how you feel, I'll make it easy for you." Then I sat back down. I didn't argue. I just turned my attention back to the game like nothing had happened. For a second, she just stood there, waiting for me to react the way she expected, for me to argue, to explain myself, to beg. When she realized I wasn't going to, her face twisted with frustration, and with one final huff, she spun around and stormed out of the room. The silence lingered for a few more seconds, and then, one by one, my friends started talking again. Nobody acknowledged what had just happened. Not even a joke about it. They just let it pass, the way men do when they witness something that shouldn't have happened. But in my head, I already knew. I had just made my decision. I wasn't staying in that house. After the game ended, my friends had already gotten up, stretching, checking their phones, making their usual post-game small talk. No one brought up what had just happened, and honestly, I was grateful for the silence. The last thing I needed was pity or advice. One by one, they left. I walked them to the door like I always did, shaking hands, nodding, forcing out a small smile. But my mind was somewhere else. As soon as the door shut behind the last one, I stood there for a long moment, just reflecting. The house was quiet. Tina was in the bedroom, probably fuming, probably expecting me to come in there and apologize like I had done so many times before. But this time was different. This time, I wasn't confused and I wasn't waiting for things to get better. I wasn't holding on to the idea that if I just tried harder, things would go back to the way they were. No, this time, I knew exactly what I had to do. I walked into the bedroom, saw her lying there with her back turned to me, scrolling through her phone. I pulled out a duffel bag from the closet and started packing. I packed only the essentials, some clothes, my documents, my laptop. Nothing more. I was leaving because there was nothing left to fight for. And I think that's what made it so easy. I had already checked out emotionally long before this night. By morning, I was gone, and for 2 days, nothing. No calls. No texts. Not even a single "Where are you?" I wasn't surprised, though. In her mind, I was just throwing a tantrum. She probably expected me to come crawling back the moment I got hungry or needed something. Then, on the 3rd day, a text came through. "When will you be done with your anger and be back to the house?" I stared at the message for a long time. This cold, dismissive message made it clear she didn't take any of this seriously. In her mind, I was just being dramatic. I didn't reply because there was nothing to say. Weeks later, I had the divorce papers sent to her. That was when the reality of the situation finally hit her. Suddenly, the same woman who acted like she didn't care now wanted to talk. Now she wanted to fix things. She sent long texts, left voicemails, even tried calling. She played the guilt card, saying I was the one who walked out on our marriage, that I was the one giving up. I had nothing more to say to her. If she had been a good wife, she would have realized how badly she had been treating me long before I walked out that door. But she didn't. And that told me everything I needed to know. When I walked out of that house that night, I had no grand plan, no backup savings, no job lined up. I just knew I couldn't stay in a place where I was disrespected. At first, it was rough. Sleeping on a friend's couch for a few days, eating cheap meals just to get by, and feeling the weight of failure pressing down on me. But here's the thing. When you hit rock bottom, you either stay there or you force yourself to climb out. I didn't have the luxury of self-pity. I had to make money, and fast. I started taking jobs I never would have considered before. Things I used to look down on suddenly became my lifeline. I helped out at a local car wash, carried boxes in a warehouse, even did some overnight security work. Whatever paid, I took it. And as I worked, something changed. I wasn't just making money. I was regaining my pride. There's something about earning, even if it's just a little, that puts you back in control of your life. The small jobs led to better ones. In a couple of months, I picked up new skills, met people who gave me opportunities, and slowly, I started to rebuild. Looking back, I realized that Tina's attitude, as painful as it was the push I needed. If she had been supportive, maybe I would have stayed comfortable in my struggle, hoping things would magically get better. But when a woman stops respecting you, when she starts treating you like dead weight, you either prove her wrong or let her bury you. I chose the first option. Now to the men listening, let me be real with you. Power in a relationship is real. The way your woman sees you is most times tied to what you bring to the table. It's not about money alone, but about being a man she can rely on. The moment you stop leading, stop striving, stop having a vision, respect fades. And once that respect is gone, it's almost impossible to get it back. Another thing, dominant personalities don't change. If a woman has a controlling nature before marriage, she won't magically become soft and submissive just because you put a ring on her finger. I made the mistake of thinking marriage would fix things, that my role as a provider would naturally balance the dynamic. I was wrong. You cannot ignore red flags and expect things to work out in your favor. And here's a harsh truth. Some women only love the version of you that benefits them. As long as you're providing, leading, making things easy, they're happy. But the moment you struggle, the moment you can't serve their needs the way they expect, their love starts to fade. They don't see you anymore. They see a burden. That's why, as a man, you can't afford to become weak, stagnant, or complacent. You have to keep growing, keep pushing forward, because the world doesn't care about excuses. So, if you ever find yourself in a situation where respect is gone, where you're being treated like a child in your own home. Don't argue. Don't beg. Don't explain. Just leave. If you have to rebuild from scratch, do it. Because starting over with your dignity intact is better than staying in a place where you're nothing but a shadow of the man you used to be. Well, that's my story. I didn't expect my marriage to end the way it did, but looking back, I can see exactly where things went wrong. I ignored the early signs. I assumed things would fall into place just because I was a man and a provider. I thought love and commitment would be enough to hold everything together. But what I learned the hard way is that respect is the foundation of any relationship. And once that's gone, everything else crumbles. I know some of you watching this might be in a similar situation right now. Maybe you've lost your job. Maybe the dynamic in your home has shifted, and you're feeling that same shift in how your woman looks at you. Maybe she's no longer affectionate, no longer kind, no longer the person she used to be when things were good. If that's the case, don't sit there waiting for things to go back to how they were. They won't. A woman who truly respects you won't let tough times erase that respect. And a woman who only valued you for what you could provide will eventually show you exactly who she is. So, to every man watching, I'll leave you with this. Your peace, your self-respect, and your future are worth more than staying in a situation where you are not valued. If you have to beg for respect, you've already lost it. The strongest thing you can do is walk away in silence. Focus on rebuilding, on becoming better, on making sure that next time, you never put yourself in a position where your worth is tied to how much money you bring in. I appreciate you all for listening. If this story resonated with you, if you've been through something similar, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Let's have a real conversation about this, because a lot of men are going through it and they don't even realize it. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe. There's plenty more to talk about. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.